Welcome to the Fighting on Film podcast, the podcast all about classic and obscure war movies, from the Normandy landings to the days of chivalry and swords. If it's been captured on film, we're going to try and cover it. I'm Robbie of RM Military History.
I'm Matthew Moss of Historical Firearms and the Armourer's Bench. Hello and welcome back to Fighting on Film. This week we are taking a look at Micheal Bay's Bad Boys in Benghazi, which came out in 2016. Of course, I'm joking.
Is that your alternate title? That's quite good, actually.
Of course, I joke, I jest. We are, of course, discussing today 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi, which came out in 2016 and is about the incident which happened in September 2012 in Benghazi, where a US annex, diplomatic
CIA annex, yeah.
Well, the diplomatic annex was attacked first, and then the CIA annex was also attacked, which resulted in a multi-hour siege and a diplomatic incident and a massive crisis. We probably won't be discussing the politics side of this, because obviously in the US, the incident has a lot of politics behind it and a lot of blame. But we're just going to be discussing this as a film, as we normally do.
As we always say, we're a film show about history stuff, not a history show about film stuff.
Exactly.
Which we should preface. Do you want me to do cast first and then production?
Why not?
Because I always think production flows into the retro review a lot nicer. Yeah. Right, so we have the GRS team, which is the team of ex-army, ex-military contractors who are protecting the CIA annex. In the film's lead role, we have John Krasinski as Jack Silver, best known for his role as Jim on the American version of The Office. Other notable roles include Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan on Amazon Prime, A Quiet Place, and he also played Reed Richards in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And he's married to Emily Blunt, which I think is amazing. What a power couple that is. Then we have James Badge Dale as Tyrone Roan Woods. He played Robert Leckie in The Pacific. Very recognisable face if you're a fan of those series.
He's very good in this.
Very good. He should be in a lot more. Like, I think he's fantastic. Plays that ex-army sort of hard nut really well. Good leader. Then he's also been in The Departed, 24, CSI Miami, CSI New York, World War Z, and Iron Man 3. Then we have Max Martini as Mark Osgeist. He played Corporal Henderson in Saving Private Ryan. He was in The Great Raid, Pacific Rim, Sergeant Will Gardner, which is a film he wrote and directed himself, I think. And his TV work includes 24, The Unit, which is like an American Ultimate Force, if you remember that from back in the day, Matt.
Yeah.
It's a good show, I remember. I
only Before watched it SEALs became a thing, yeah.
That's it. I watched it because it was on an episode of Charlie Brooker's TV show that he used to do.
Oh, was it?
Screen Wipe. Yeah, it was on that.
Yeah.
Then he was also in Hawaii Five-0, the new one, not the old one. Training Day, and a series called Crisis. Then we have Dominic Famuza as John Tig Teagan. His film roles include Allegiance, which is a 2004 Iraq war film about about a National Guard unit from New York just before they go out to Iraq. Focus and The Report as TV work. He's probably best known for his role as Kevin Payton in Nurse Jackie, which was the black comedy that came out a few years ago. He was also in The Sopranos, Law and Order, Homeland, Blue Bloods, and more recently the Equalizer remake series. I'm rattling through this week, guys, because there's a heck of a lot of people going on. There's different factions and teams, so I'm trying to get through them. Then we have Pablo Schreiber as Chris Tanto Paronto. His film roles include he was also with Famuza in Allegiance. He was in The Manchurian Candidate. And TV roles, I know him best for his role as Pawntash in Orange is the New Black, if you remember watching that, Matt. Yeah. Quite an early role for him.
I hadn't put it together that it was him, actually, but yeah.
Yeah. He's in American Gods, The Brink, and most recently has got some notoriety for playing Master Chief in Paramount Plus's Halo TV series.
I recently watched the first episode of that the other day.
Yeah, he takes his helmet off. What's Chief doing?
I know. It's like, oh, it's a big reveal.
Yeah, weird. I didn't get it.
Mm.
I was rather looking forward to the Neil Blomkamp version that we never got.
Oh.
Oh well.
Well, thank God he made that Gran Turismo film or
Yeah, I
whatever the
know, right?
fuck it was. Need for Speed or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, shame. Then we have
Mhm.
David Denman as Dave Boone Benton. He was in Big Fish, After Earth, Logan Lucky, The Equalizer 3, and he will work alongside Badge Dale again in the upcoming thriller Rebel Ridge. His TV work includes The X-Files, The Office, Mad Men, and True Detective. And then we have Toby Stephens, British actor. He's Dame Maggie Smith's son, if you didn't know, playing Glenn Bub Doherty. He's a GRS member in Tripoli. So he's not with the team at the start of the movie, but he's still, a part of them. It seems like
Yeah,
he's been
he's
good
kind of
friends with
like
these men.
management sort of thing, isn't
Yeah,
he? He's like
yeah. But
oversees the
he knows
operation in
Roan.
Libya.
Yeah, he's one of Roan's
Yeah,
friends. And his films roles in I know him best as Gustav Graves from Die Another Day.
yeah. I think that's
Yeah,
how a lot of people were introduced to him.
I think so. Yeah, and he's also been in Severance, which is quite a good British black comedy, and a Hunter Killer with Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
TV work includes 2002's biopic of Napoleon. Matt will probably know him from this one, Sharp's Challenge.
Yes, he's very good in that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
was the
plays it
lead
plays
in.
a real shit in that.
Yeah, I think he was one of the leads in Black Sails, the pirate
He was.
series,
Yeah,
which was on Stars. And then he was in Netflix's Lost in Space. Matt likes that one
very
again.
good in that as well. I enjoyed that
Yeah,
show.
and from 2012, he's voiced James Bond in a series of audio dramas.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Then we have the CIA members, and we have Alexia Barlia as Sonia Giuliani or Gilani. Yeah, Sonia Gilani. She's a French actress. She's been in predominantly French productions, but she was in a British movie called What We Did on Our Holiday and a French series called The Forest and Falco. Then we have David Constable as Bob, the chief of the CIA, the chief of the CIA annex. And he's he's sort of the film's main antagonist, apart from all the militiamen trying to get into the
Yes, because there
embassy.
isn't a main lead Libyan
No, there's not. They
antagonist.
don't do that. Yeah, which I'm kind
It's
of glad they didn't.
sort of a
It keep,
homogenous
yeah, it keeps it ambiguous
antagonist
in a way.
with characters within the annex
Yeah,
actually making things more
it's like
difficult for them.
bureaucracy is the enemy, I guess, that they're trying to
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of say.
Mm,
So
mm.
David himself was in Lincoln, The Post, which is a fantastic movie, The Wire, Better Call Saul, Waco: The Aftermath, and Billions. And shout out Shane Rowe for playing a CIA annex cook, who will come up later in the episode. But he doesn't have many credits. 13 Hours is probably his biggest role to date, but he was in a film called For Her Sins and Deep Fear. And then rounding off the cast this week, we have the US State Department, who were attacked first. And here are some of the main players. So we have Matt Lechner, or Lechner, playing Ambassador Chris Stevens. Unfortunately, the ambassador himself was killed in real life. So he has an early role in Gettysburg, The Mask of Zorro, Gods and Generals. We need to do those two, really, don't we?
Yeah,
Gettysburg and Gods and Generals.
we
We've
do.
got a
Yeah,
Blu-ray of Gods and Generals, I think. God knows how.
probably got the Steelbook somewhere, haven't
I don't know. I've got the Steelbook of Patton. Uh,
we? Mm.
his TV work includes The Larry Sanders Show, NYPD Blue, Reverse. He was the Reverse Flash in the Flash series, and he was in DC Legends of Tomorrow. So,
How does
yeah,
one reverse a flash?
well,
Does he arrive flashed and then become non-flashed
I think he runs quickly in reverse,
backwards? Does
perhaps.
he
I
run
don't know.
backwards? Yeah,
I'm not a
just
DC guy. I wouldn't know.
arrives without a flash. I don't know.
Probably, I don't know.
Do continue. I've really
Derailed me
stumbled
there.
on that one. Yeah.
Then we have David Gwynn Tolley as Scott Wickland. He's a DSS agent, part of the Ambassador security team. He voiced Batman in the animated features Batman Soul of the Dragon and Doom That Came to Gotham. And his TV roles include Grimm. He was in an episode of Key and Peele and A Million Little Things. And then finally this week, we have Demetrius Gross playing Dave Ubben, another DSS security agent. He's been in Saving Mr. Banks, Straight Outta Compton, and Rampage. TV works include Justified, Westworld, Fear the Walking Dead, and he also voiced Sergeant Griggs in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 in the multiplayer of that game. I think it's really interesting that he voices a character in Call of Duty, and then there's a mission in that Call of Duty called The Embassy, which, if
Mm.
you've played it, heavily riffs off of this sequence of events. Like it's sometimes it's like 100% recreating it. I showed Matt a video of it because I know he hadn't played it.
Yeah, I haven't played that one.
What did you think? It looked pretty much verbatim at times, didn't it?
The bit I saw was a bit different. Like it's a much bigger embassy and stuff. But yeah, there's a similar sort of vibe and
Bit
plot
we're on
going
the
through it.
roof and they're coming
Yeah,
through the wooded
yeah,
area,
yeah.
like the grassy area.
The
Yeah.
the bit where they're doing Overwatch, definitely.
Very much so. Very much so. Anyway, so that is my cast this week. And I've got to say, before we quickly go on to production, I think the cast is fantastic. I don't think there's anything wrong with any of them,
Yeah.
really.
We talked about this before we actually began recording, but you could have easily had a much bigger, more recognizable cast, and I don't think it would have worked as well.
No, I think it would have taken a lot away from it, actually. I really
It's
do.
that
We'll talk
classic
about that
thing,
later.
isn't it? It's that classic thing where it's like you're more engrossed in the film if you
You
don't
are.
like
Yeah.
have well-known faces.
I've got an example of this and how I think it works, but I'll say it in my final thoughts. So, Matt,
Okay, great.
production this week.
Well, let me start off by saying that the film had a budget of $50 million and a box office of $69.4 million,
Matt's
which
fucking with me here because
isn't a massive success. Yeah, I am a little bit because apparently I always forget to do box office take
well,
when
I've
I do
noticed the last three
production.
edits I've done, I've had to tell you.
Well, I mean, you're just the expert on box office take and budgets. Clearly,
It's a good way of knowing whether a film was good or not.
it's a solid metric. No, that's for sure. So as I mentioned in the introduction, the film was directed by Micheal Bay, best known for Bad Boys, The Rock, Pearl Harbor, the Transformer films, yay,
They've grossed $1
Armageddon.
billion, Matt. You can't disregard them. They've
I've never
grossed $1
seen a
billion.
single fucking one of them, Rob. I've never seen any of the Transformer
I
films.
watched the one where one turns into a Mark One tank from World War One. So, because I
God, that
wanted to
sounds
see it.
awful. That sounds like a.
His arm's the cannon. How cool is that?
Oh God, I just don't like my brain is aligned with like scientific process. Not that I'm particularly scientific, but I just when
Actually,
I
I
look
think
at
you'll find a car cannot transform into a robot.
exactly like why is it transforming into something else? Like why and then it talks as well. Anyway,
How boring must you have been as a kid? Like, he
oh yeah,
didn't watch
oh yeah,
Autobots.
definitely,
He didn't watch
definitely my childhood
Transformers.
was lit.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully, I didn't bring all my friends around and bore them to death with why the Transformers films are
Just standing
scientifically
in front
impossible.
of a big telly, be like, "This can't happen. This is
Pause it,
rubbish."
mother. I must tell my friends why the Transformers are not real things.
Amazing.
Anyway, Micheal Bay, also known for Armageddon, The Ambulance, and was also the exec producer
I
on
know
the
you have to say ambulance because it was written weird on the poster.
Ambulance.
Yeah, because it
More like fucking ambivalence at this point. But as I was saying, he was also the executive producer on the Amazon Jack Ryan show, which
oh, cool. Okay. So that's
Krasinski
maybe
was in,
how he
obviously.
got. Maybe,
Yeah, I
yeah.
reckon there must have been like a lineup there. So the screenplay was written by crime and sci-fi novelist Chuck Hogan, who's written the Strange trilogy with Guillermo del Toro, which was later adapted to a multi-series TV show in the sort of like late 2000s, early 2010s. And Prince of Thieves in 2004 was adopted into Ben Affleck's film The Town
Oh,
in
yeah, it's good.
2010.
That. Like that film.
Yeah. And it was based off Mitchell Zuckoff's book of the same name. And he is an American professor of journalism at Boston University. And he writes these kind of big overarching books about events and such. Cinematography was handled by Dion Beebe, who is best known for Equilibrium, Collateral, Miami Vice, Edge of Tomorrow, Michael Jackson biopic, which is upcoming, and of course
Really?
one of his
Wow.
yes, I know.
Who's playing Michael Jackson? Did you find that out?
Yeah, I did actually. Michael's being played by one of Jerome Jackson's sons,
Wow.
so it's a nephew. Yeah,
That's going to be amazing. Wow.
wild. And he also worked on Mary Poppins: The Return.
What a link to John Krasinski.
Lead editor on the film, because I think with a Micheal Bay film, it's kind of important to mention the editors because they do a lot of work. Is Pietro Scalia, right?
You know, like
Trying to fit all the explosions in.
lens flare. What's that South Park? That's all I'm thinking of is a South Park Mickey taking being read like, and then we'll have an explosion.
Well, pretty much that is every Micheal Bay
It
film,
really
isn't
is,
it?
yeah.
He co-won an Oscar for Black Hawk Down. He worked on JFK, Good Will Hunting, Gladiator, The Great Raid, American Gangster, The Martian, and Ferrari recently.
What a run of
and
movies
Solo.
that is.
I know, it's an incredible career. I mean, they're just some of the ones I cherry picked out because they kind of fit our area of interest. Music was provided by Lorne Balfe, who's done quite a bit of soundtrack work, including for Churchill, 12 Strong, Mission Impossible, Fallout, The Tomorrow War, which we should do on the show because it's actually quite funny.
That's a fun one. That's weird. That, yeah.
Outside the Wire, Military Wives, and most recently Argylle. Matthew Vaughan's Argylle, which has just come out.
That's bombing, apparently.
Yes.
The reviews.
I was going to go and see it this week and I never got around to it, so maybe I'm not helping there.
Matt, come on, they need you.
They need my £5 or my
The
more like
cinemas need
£15
you.
at this
Christ,
point.
they bloody need you right now. Help them.
And then just to dive into some of the military advisors on the film, we have the real Mark Oz Geist. Go. The real Mark Oz Geist was an advisor on the film and was instrumental in getting some of the details right. And then a number of other people, including Harry Humphreys, who has worked on a whole plethora of films, including Tears of the Sun, Black Hawk Down, Bad Boys 2, Enemy of the State, Armageddon, The Rock. Worked a lot with Bay. He was a Vietnam veteran with SEAL Team 2.
Oh, wow.
He was in from like 58 to 71, so early SEALs too.
Wow.
Really interesting career. Then did lots of security work and been consulted on films since I believe the 90s.
Yeah, do a SEAL film and have him as the advisor. Come on.
Right. Then we got Joost Janssen, who had a 12-year military career and was also a Navy SEAL. And then he was also a counterterrorism support direct hire by the CIA as well. So he had background within that sort of sphere. Who else have we got? There's quite a few on the show. There's Kevin Kent is another SEAL. Kevin had a 21-year career. He was with Naval Special Warfare as a chief of warfare operations in E7 for like 20 years. Worked on all sorts of different films, including Navy SEALs versus Zombies, Tom Clancy's John.
Should do that for the Halloween one. Yeah, that sounds great.
We should do that actually. 12 Strong, Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan. What else has he done? Let me just get it up. 1 second. And he's also worked on The Tomorrow War as well, The Five Bloods, The Last Ship, and Behind Enemy Lines as well. So worked on quite a few different movies.
Oh, you could do the siege with the advisors.
I know, right? Then we got Mike Moriarty, who worked as an advisor and a technical advisor, and Taron Butler, who's probably best known for his more recent work on the John Wick films. He's a champion shooter, specializes in very fast, precise, close-up work, and did all the sort of gun choreography.
Have you ever come across him in your profession?
I've never actually met him. I've walked past him and his entourage. He normally has a big crew with him. But I've met friends of his, and I know a couple of people that know him professionally and stuff. But I've never.
I'm sure you both looked at each other, and because game knows game, so I'm sure you. I'm sure you.
I don't think Taron knows who I am.
Game knows game, Matt. Come on.
Take your word for it on that one. So it was filmed on location in Malta and Morocco, standing in for Libya. Obviously, Libya is still wrapped with strife and a little bit unstable, so obviously couldn't film in Benghazi, and that probably wouldn't have been a good idea in 2016. Let's face it.
No.
That would have riled up certain sentiment again, I've no doubt. And that kind of rounds out production. I know it's a little bit lengthy there with some of the advisors, but it's really interesting to get an idea of all the various people that were helping on the actual
Yeah.
production.
That talking about the advisors, there's a great behind the scenes feature
Yeah.
on YouTube with all the
Like
shooting.
all of those guys are in it. Like Tyrone
Yeah,
Butler's
it's fantastic.
helping one of the, I think it's the chap who plays Tanto
hmm
on a M249. The Juiced is in there. I think Harry Humphreys
Yeah.
as a like
And
kind of talks them through the
Martini
process and stuff.
says that he's a bit of a gun guy. He owns like guns at home and things like that.
hmm
And he was saying how, after the training, he was like, "Oh, come on, let's put some money down. Let's make a competition of it." And he came in third. He was really upset. And I think did Krasinski win? He said that it's Krasinski
Yeah,
or Pablo Schreiber
Krasinski
won.
won
Yeah.
and Schreiber came second. Yeah,
That's a great little video. That I like it.
yeah,
Anyway,
it's good.
so
Good bit of
yeah,
background.
very good. That's the good thing about doing more modern films every now and then, is that the extras are usually there to be found.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't say that about every film we do. So the retro review this week comes from Tony Hawkins of Empire magazine from the 25th of the 1st, 2016, and he gives the film 3 out of 5 stars. And I've got an extract for you here. On arrival in Benghazi, Silver is picked up by Tyrone Woods, who tells him you can't tell the good guys from the bad. That sets the tone for what follows. When the attacks come, it's literally a bloody mess. Vastly outnumbered, Silver, Woods, and the team fight to keep dozens of militants at bay until backup arrives. The resultant battle is long and brutal. An exonerable collage of lost limbs and spraying blood, all presented in Bay's signature fast edit slow-mo style. It's an extremely tough watch. There's little stillness to counteract the chaos, and we never really get to know these men. Bay squanders the potential to explore the nuances of a politically sensitive issue, and instead descends into a gruesome display of war porn.
Yeah, Micheal Bay has no interest in your politics other than slow motion shots of the US flag fluttering in the wind.
I think the movie's doing a hell of a lot more than he gives it credit for. That reviewer.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later on, the patriotic side of things, because that's one of the things that came up a lot in, I believe, the one word reviews. But that's a really interesting review. I think it doesn't quite give it the credit that I would give it.
No,
And I think you agree with me on that one, but we'll talk about that much later on, I'm sure.
I always pick these reviews to get a reaction from you, because that's the point. But I think he's been a bit unfair, because I think the line that rankled with me was, you don't get to know anything about the men. I think you get to know just enough about them. And
yes,
the first 40 minutes of this movie is the men just doing their job, not fighting. And you get to know a lot about them.
And that's important, because you need to know what they were there for. They're there to protect CIA operatives in the field.
And the deeper reality of it is that they're there because it's good money. And they've got families at home, and they'd rather not be doing this.
Human level, yeah.
Having done numerous tours of God knows where before in their military careers, I'm sure that the last thing they'd want is to go and do it again. Unless you're really into it and that's your life. But that there is a lot more at stake here.
And there's discussion of that in the film. They talk about that.
There's a lot more at stake than Hawkins gives it credit for.
I think is it Roan that says he went home and just didn't feel right, so he
exactly
came back out.
But that's it. Some guys are military men and they want to be military men forever. And that's perfectly fine. If that's your career, so that's your calling, that's fine. So, on to the one-word reviews. And it was another bumper crop of one-word reviews. I think we had about 60, 70 replies, which is always lovely.
Absolutely love it. At Fighting on Film on X, or as we prefer to call it, Twitter.
Yes, agreed. So, starting off with Stuart Urban, director of Ungentlemanly Act. We love always to hear from you, Stuart. Hope you're doing well. He says, stonking. Sari Thomas says, Ta Kwali. Daniel Michael says, Jim. Lance Nielsen says, gripping. Dr. Waitman Bjorn goes with magatastic, which was interesting in the comments, I must admit. Some very interesting discussions going on this week. Some spats. I mean, I had to hover with the old hover in the Fighting on Film AC 130 just to check things didn't get too heated, but luckily it didn't. We have Adam Christian goes with Bubs. Ian McKellen goes with Thunderstruck. AD Bond goes with Solid. Jem Dudaku says Bay does better with lower budgets. Really good. Underrated.
That's not one word, but I'll allow it because it's true.
Yes. Jack Badalier goes with Masturbatory. Tall Bloke says Beardy Weirdy. Nick Caravias goes with Where's Pam? Nice office mention there. George says low angle slow motion. Ian Miles, hubristic. And we will end this week with Scott M. Carpenter, who says tense.
It would have been actually quite funny if they'd gotten the lady that played Pam in The Office to be his wife.
That would have been good.
That would have been hilarious.
They'd never have got away with that.
Struggling with the kids, trying to get them through McDonald's and being like, Mummy's pregnant. And she's like, oh, God. Well, it's Pam.
How? It's like, Jim, Dunder Mifflin's really not coping. You're having this weird midlife crisis joining a GRS team. That would be quite a funny Office episode.
Yeah, Jim's background is he was on Gulf War One as a fucking like 16-year-old.
He just takes a job at Dunder Mifflin just to get away from it all.
Right.
But yeah, no, it was quite contentious this week. There was a lot of people who were sort of talking about the politics behind the events, and there were some like the movie, some don't.
Yeah,
and this has been
it's
on
largely around where the blame lies. That's the kind of politics side of it.
After things like this, people want to know why. I completely understand. So I think we're gonna have to get into the alley tally because it's a big.
Oh yes,
roll that Acast ad.
It's time for Alley Tally on Fighting on Film.
God, I hope that Acast ad had something to do with cool guns because we're about to talk about a lot of cool guns.
Yeah, maybe it was for Huel. We'll never know.
Probably, yeah.
It's different for everyone's.
It is.
So, Matt, you're a resident gun man, and this movie has got guns galore.
I'm going to start by talking about the cool pistol handling of John Krasinski when he sort of like lands in country, gets in the car, and he's handed a Sig Sauer. I think it's a P226. And he kind of like checks the chamber, and then he decocks it, which is a really nice little inclusion. And he does that every time he handles a pistol in the film. He kind of like chambers around, decocks it, which is the drill.
Showing the professionalism of the people.
Exactly. And that whole opening sequence perfectly aligns that these guys are seasoned, they're professional.
Yeah.
And he outlines the situation on the ground. As you've already mentioned, it's difficult to differentiate who's friend and foe. And then that whole sequence, the tense sequence of the roadblock, is really good as well, which features like a technical with a KPVT, like a 14.5 millimeter heavy machine gun, and it's like pointed straight at their Land Cruiser or whatever they're in.
I think it's a Land Cruiser. Yeah, it's nice. I like it. It's the movie starts off incredibly tense. You're not battered over the head with like he was an ex-Navy SEAL. You don't need that. You just showing them comfortably handling a firearm is enough. Yeah. I like how
proficiency kind of hints at their background.
Yeah, I like it. It's just enough. So for me, and I'm talking way later in the movie. So there was so much to choose from this week, but I really love Shane Rowe as the CIA chefs, the CIA annex.
2 or 3 scenes, doesn't he, where he pops up?
He only has a few scenes, but
really good.
I really like it because he comes out wearing a plate carrier over his chef's whites, and I think it's Bub. Is it Bub?
No, I don't think it is. It's Roan, I think.
But was it Boone? No, it's Boone. It's Boone.
It's Boone, right.
Yeah. So Boone says, "Are you ready for some action?" I'm paraphrasing, but he goes, "If anyone comes over that wall tonight, we're going to kick some ass." And then after that, you see him on the gun line, and he is armed with a Mossberg 500 Persuader shotgun. And I love Mossberg 500s because my dad used to own one. So I think they're super cool. And you get some great shots of him blasting out of a little sort of what would you call it? Like a sort of not like a little window thing, like a little tiled window.
Yeah, it's like a small gap in the wall, like a gun loop almost, where he's like, it might even be on a gate, but he's kind of like blasting out of that.
He's blasting away. But I like how that showed that at that point in the siege, everyone who could handle a weapon.
I mean, little did we know he's like a 10-year Delta veteran.
Probably, yeah.
And he just likes cooking.
I want a movie from his point of view.
Yeah.
Probably. Oh, he's left a pot on the stove. Oh no, the rice pudding's going to be ruined.
Yeah. The station chief is like, "Who's left the cooker on?"
Yeah, this milk's boiling over. What's going on? You never get it off that stove.
Where's the lasagna?
Yeah, I'm hungry. Come on. These lads are gasping in here. They've been fighting a siege. But no, I just like how that scene just shows the all hands nature of the defense of the annex. You know, everyone's playing their part. And this, you know, and the CIA guys are too. So I think by that point in the movie, I'm talking way before, you know, we really got into the meat of things this week. But by that point in the movie, everyone's kind of put their issues aside and they're fighting for the one cause to sort of save themselves and, you know, make sure the embassy's not overrun. And then another thing I thought was cool is Rose's Salient Arms International GRY rifle with an EOTech red dot sight and a snub-nosed gel brake muzzle. Now, the gun is anachronistic because it was developed in 2015.
I have no idea why it's in the film. I've never actually seen one before in anything else.
It just, probably the armor was like, got this really cool gun for Roan to have.
It's more ninjaed up to the tits with accessories and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, this film is a Gucci Firearms film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's and you can tell it's that John Wick influence. You know, you can see it in there. You know, it is that, I think, coming through from maybe the advisory teams had this input, being like, yeah, get him on one of them. You know, I'm not sure what real weapon the guys would have had. There's a picture of Silver at the end, and he's armed with an MP5. So I'm not sure if that's a picture from the time.
That's an obvious close protection weapon for the kind of stuff they were doing with the operatives and the field officers. But in terms of what they probably would have had Mark 18s, which are short carbines. M4A1s are quite prevalent throughout the film.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys with them.
There's a lot of M249 action, and that's really nice.
It's like a Fabrique Nationale advert at some points.
Yeah, it is. It is because like the mini-me action in it is excellent because there's a great shot where they'll all run to their rack.
Yeah,
and it's all their like ready gear, like throw on like plate carriers and grab like rucksacks and stuff.
Is like the scene in Aliens where they get their pulse rifles.
And like two of them pull off these M249s and they've got EOTechs and lasers and like they've got the goofy looking heat shields that have been taken off them.
Very Call of Duty,
so they look like,
isn't it?
Like mini-me Mark IIIs, very. And then there's some really cool scenes with M240s, like FN mags, like really hammering, and they get the sound really.
It won an Oscar for sound mixing, or it was nominated for an Oscar for sound mixing.
I was about to say that.
Sorry.
That's quite all right. It was Oscar nominated at I believe it was actually the 89th Academy Awards, Rob.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
someone's done the research this week and is a bit touchy about it.
I even got the budget and the box office.
Well done, you.
But I like that initial sort of like when they sally out to go and try and rescue the ambassador, and they take an awful lot of firepower with them, and there's only like 5 of them that go. So they've all got either like Mark 18s or that cool gun that Rowan's got, or the M4A1s, and the mini-me's, the M249s, and I think it's Tanto that has the HK 69 A1 40mm grenade launcher.
That's Krasinski. Krasinski uses it.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so he has that, and there's a technical firing at them, and it's his job to kind of like take it out. Yeah. And I love the fact that it takes him 2, because that's very accurate. You'd be very lucky to hit it in the moment, hit it with the first round at that range.
Oh, there's a definite in that section you're talking about. There's a definite like piston underneath the truck pushing it up.
Yeah.
Like it's so obvious to me. It just
needs like flip that shit, flip it now.
Yeah, it's so good. It's a very good
explosion.
Sequence. Yeah, we got it. We have it.
Basically, that I really like the chaos of that sequence. There's lots and lots of RPGs being spammed, and there's a couple of really cool scenes where there's like detail shots of guys that have fired an RPG, and they've missed, and it's like ricochets off and flies off into the sky, or like one of them's hit by a burst from a mini-me, and he like fires it into a car, or one explodes in a room later on.
Yeah, there's one
bit
with
really spams the
there's
RPGs.
One bit where the Feb 17 guy comes out to help them, 17 Feb guy, and he fires an RPG and it bounces off a wall and like hits another wall. And one of the lads goes, "Oh, I'm so pleased he's on our side." Like, thank God. It's
There's
a
some good lines in it,
great
actually.
squaddy humor. I love it.
In
There's
terms of all the stuff that pops up with the Libyans and the 17 Fed dudes, like lots of AKMs, AKMSs, an RPD pops up,
Yep.
which is the older Soviet belt fed, PKMs. As I mentioned earlier, the technicals are always like KPVTs or Dushkas. And of course, there's a couple of dudes that run into the State Department annex in like white dress shirts
Yeah.
with like chromed up AKMSs.
Yeah.
And they're like firing them over their heads.
And they got like one arm them at one point as well.
Yeah,
Really
yeah, he's like
cool.
one arm in it.
Yeah.
There's a load of really interesting bits within that, which I haven't read the book, but I assume some of them come out of the book. So there's a bit where someone accidentally frags themselves.
Yep.
There's that weird sort of moment where they're walking around the compound trying to find the ambassador, and it's all gone a bit quiet, and there's people milling around, and you don't know who's friendly, who's not. And they walk past those guys in the white shirts, and they've just been like blatting away at the embassy, at the annex, and then they're like. Then they have like an interaction with them, which is completely normal, and it's
Americans over there, your friends. Yeah,
really it's a very interesting sort of like sequence.
I mean, to round out my alley tally, really, that it's one of these sort of it's very if you know the term tactical, it's very much that you've got you've got plate carriers on. Everyone's got plate carriers. They've all got like civilian shirts on underneath,
football
jeans,
kits,
boots,
and schmeggers.
Football kits and schmeggers.
It's an absolute vibe.
It's a strong
I
look.
couldn't make out the teams or what they were, but
it's a strong. I definitely saw I paused it. I saw a British 2007 Rugby World Cup shirt in there with the O2 branding on it. I had to pause it because I was like, "That's the British Rugby logo. What's going on there?"
That's
anyway,
crazy.
that might be the Malta influence. You never know. An extra might have turned up with it on. So
there's fouls as well, isn't there?
Fouls, yeah. And then you got Tanto in his shorts. Krasinski wears a Punisher patch, which I think the real Silver may have done.
Pretty ubiquitous for that kind of guy.
Yeah, very much.
In that kind of period, for sure.
And of course they've got their contractor beards because you need them.
I think Rome is like strutting around in some ranger shorts doing his exercises. Yeah. There's a really funny bit where he's like in the yard like doing weights and he's like grunting with the effort, and the station chief is having a chat with Krasinski, and he's like, "Can you shut the hell up out the window?"
yeah. But even down to the small things, like their little rumpus room they've got with the Xbox in it, and Tanto's having a game of I think it might have even been Call of Duty actually, but that's a nice little thing. Apparently, I think the character he was portraying was an avid gamer. Or one of them was, so that's a nice little callback to the actual team. But it looks really lived in. I really appreciated the set dressing in that sequence.
The mise en scène is,
and I was trying not to say it.
I have to. It's contractually obliged.
I'm going to
make
contract. A mise en scène shirt design, and I'm going to put it out this year, I think. But I think it's just one of those movies that is if you're a gun person and you like quite well shot firefights, this is one for you. I really do.
Okay. Did you spot the Bedford?
What?
There's a Bedford.
Is there where?
Yeah. So, the sequence where they're doing the arms deal and they're buying the SA-7s, the man-pads, the man-portable air defense systems, like kind of like man-portable air defense systems. These guys like turn up and there's a very tense sequence. It's a Bedford flatbed.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
I didn't like make out the model,
late
but
call
I
for the
clearly
Bedford
saw
report there. We've not had a Bedford report for months.
Right.
Lovely. Absolutely love to hear it. Yeah.
Oh, and you spotted something cool that we haven't mentioned yet.
Oh, yes.
In the bazaar.
Very brief. And this is, if you know me and Matt, you'll know we would have, gone crazy the minute we saw it. But there's a British 80s man-pad called a blowpipe, and there's a later version of it called the Javelin, which get a very brief little bit of screen time when the gun traders are trying to sell Krasinski firearms, and it's just a really nice little.
But they're in those kind of like wine bottle shaped transport cases, so you can easily spot them.
They're really cool.
Very cool inclusion.
Yeah, a Bedford report and a blowpipe mention.
I know.
Amazing.
Can't believe he didn't spot the Betty.
Yeah, American
It was
listeners are like,
classic
how British
sky blue
could this
as well.
section become?
Classic sky blue, and it must have been the Malta connection.
It must be, yeah. Oh, did it get
Get
blown
me
up?
a
Though?
ratty-looking pickup truck.
Did it get blown up? Because it has
No.
to get blown up. Oh wow, a rare survivor.
Yeah.
Oh my word!
Someone was like, "You can't blow up my Bedford. You can't do that."
It's my pride and joy.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to favorite scenes.
It's not an RL.
Yeah.
I'm Captain Dale Dye, and you're listening to Fighting on Film.
I mean, I've already talked a little bit about that opener that I think sets up his character really, really well. I've got a couple of others that I love. The bounding exfil out of the ambassador's complex.
Very good. Yeah,
it's textbook sort of like bounds. Really, really well done. And I love the night vision sequences.
I know you've been talking
They're
about it
so
for years.
good.
So me and Matt were talking about when we first saw this movie. So we think we both saw it week of release in 2016, years before we knew each other, and then we both watched this together after we went to an airsoft weekender, and we were under the influence of a few beers. And I distinctly remember
So
Matt,
laddish. What a laddish weekend we've had there.
I distinctly remember Matt grabbing me. Like I think he got up from the other side of the room and grabbed my face and went, night vision sequence, like really pissed. So I distinctly remember the night vision sequence because I got brain shake from it.
TBI.
Yeah.
It just does it really well. It's there's a little bit where they laser target and they kind of like call out their targets. Like,
yeah,
you see this guy, you see that guy, you see this guy over here with the PKM, that kind of stuff. There's a bit where they like do a laser lasso to like signal their location to Toby Stevens when he's coming in with the
I'm lassoing hard right now,
dudes.
guys. He goes, yeah. And then it annoys me because that sequence really annoys me in terms of how they've done it, because it looks like they're a lot bloody closer than they are. And then they take another like 10 minutes to get there. And I'm like, how far away were they? They were like right on top of the base. Like, oh, it's just the edit there for me.
There's some cool use of like the drone, the Predator drone they have go over, like they can see the strobes.
Yeah.
They're wearing like IFF strobes, so they know who's who.
That's cool.
Friendlies, which is a cool
inclusion. It adds a lot of depth, those scenes, actually. It does.
It adds some like technical credibility to it in terms of what they would have done.
The fact they can see them, but they can't directly help them. That's quite
all that tracer in
gut-wrenching.
the night vision. It looks so good.
I know. It's very well shot, that sequence. I must admit.
Is.
Yeah.
Also quite like when the bus goes up.
That's cool. Yeah. They're bringing up some sort of IED bomb or something, and they go, eyes on the bus, guys. Rounds on the bus. And then for Bay, the bus goes up, but it's quite controlled.
Bay, isn't it?
I was expecting a mini nuclear explosion when that went up. But
I was expecting the bus to turn into a transformer.
And it would like throw the bomb, like.
Not that he was like on set, like blocking that out, and he kind of spaced and was like, thought he was on set of a Transformers film. He's like, no, sorry, it's not a Transformers film.
So for me this week, I think Matt's already talked about it a little bit. The sequence where the GRS team finally make it across town to try and extract the ambassador, and obviously we know as viewers that it's not going well at the embassy, and the ambassador's been killed, unfortunately, and they're not going to know that until they turn up.
Even that's done quite tastefully. I thought.
Tense. You get the you know as a viewer that it's going down. Something's going to go wrong. It's only a matter of time. They've got a very small security team. There's a lot of lads there. Roan and his crew know they're the only people in the area that can get down there, and they're saying, you can't go there. You don't have permission. The chief's giving it to them. And obviously that is the most fractious part of the movie, because the CIA say, no, he didn't tell them to stand down. And obviously, but all the men on the ground say, yes, he did. So that's probably one of the most fractious parts of the movie, in terms of after the fact of after the movie coming out. But I just love the section where they arrive near the embassy and they're going in. And Matt's already said it, but it's this hectic intensity of the team are on edge anyway, because it's full of militants, it's full of men with AK-47s and guns trying to get you, and you don't know who's your enemy, you don't know who's your allies in 17 Feb, and they're all on edge. They're all saying, "Did you see those guys in that window? Have you seen those guys over there?" It's really tense, but it doesn't. Yes, the edit is quite quick, but it does it in a more sort of realistic way. If you're hearing the men's worries rather than it having directly shown at you, so I really like that. And it does a good job as making you just as confused as the GRS members, because anything could be a threat. I really think it's and that whole sequence of getting to the embassy and then getting back from the embassy is really hectic. I'd argue it's more for me it's more powerful than the end sequences when they're on the roofs, because there's so much at stake there, and then you've got the car going the wrong way, and then they get swamped, and then they just make it back. There's so much going on in that sequence. I think it's a really solid middle part of the movie. Really well done.
Yeah, no, I agree there. And we mentioned it pretty much in the alley tally, but I really like the arms bazaar sequence.
It's cool
because of just the random stuff that pops up in that super short little sequence.
It reminds me of the Black Hawk Down gun market sequence.
Yeah. I mean, one thing we didn't mention was actually the FNF 2000 bullpup.
Oh yeah, that's something
that became quite synonymous with Libya and the Civil War, etc. And that kind of appears like there's a guy like lofting it up, like
it's trying to sell it. Yeah,
kind of like
no, it's good.
Just trying to sell them on,
but no, that middle sequence just is very well done, I think people hear Micheal Bay and they think, oh, it's going to be this thing or that thing, because you're obviously thinking Transformers or you're thinking the other bombastic blockbusters he's done. But I think for Bay, I mean, we are sliding into final thoughts. I must admit, as always, why change a habit of a lifetime? But this is quite reserved for Bay, and the budget
reserved Bay,
reserved Bay, yeah. The budget isn't like 100 million, 150 million. You're working on quite a tight budget of 50. I argue they don't make war movies like this right now. We've lost this mid-budget movie, and if we're getting them, they're going on streaming. They're not going theatrically, which they should be. So I've come up with an example of a movie where this movie is in the same ilk as it, and if it had a theatrical, I think it would have done quite well. So this movie really reminds me of The Outpost that we did a few months ago, in terms of it isn't packed full of massive A-list stars to detract you from what's going on. So The Outpost has Orlando Bloom. He's the biggest name in it.
Yeah, and there's an Eastwood in there, isn't there?
And there's Chris Eastwood, or Scott Eastwood, but you wouldn't necessarily know, he's an Eastwood from looking at him. But this movie does the same with John Krasinski. He's coming off of the Office. He's just about to do Jack Reacher. He's gone on to become
I remember
a big
everyone
star.
being quite incredulous that he was going to do an action film.
I remember it. People taking the mickey out of him and thinking, oh, it's Jim from The Office. But he went down to 8% body fat for this role. Like, he put himself into it. And, he's a competent action star. And the movies he's gone on to do since this, A Quiet Place, he's probably going to be recast as Reed Richards in an upcoming Fantastic Four project. So he can do it. And this is why I think this movie works, is that it hasn't, you could easily cast the chief as of Paul Giamatti. You could have put John Bernthal in as one of the GRS members. You probably could have fit in a Chris Pratt in there if you'd wanted to, But the movie doesn't need that. It has a very strong cast of good character actors who are, not retelling events in a way. Like The Outpost is that. So, and I feel like The Outpost. This did well on streaming, 13 hours, I think, more than it did well.
I believe so. Yeah.
Theatrically, and I wish that The Outpost
continues to pop up in top tens as well over time. I think,
and I wish that The Outpost had its theatrical chance, because I think it would have made money. So I think they're at either end of the spectrum. But I really enjoy this movie. I don't think it's as bad as people want to have you believe. I think there is moments where the cliches and the clunky dialogue and the flag waving jingoism comes in just a little bit too much, but then they do back off it a bit. So
I was quite surprised that I know they don't give a face to the Libyan militias.
No.
But they do show them collecting their dead at the end.
They do, yeah.
And it kind of shows the toll. And that's really the only effort to humanize them, other than, you know, the CIA translator who is a Libyan. And I love the sequence at the end where he goes, I'm going home. And he doesn't go with the rest of the annex that's, you know, evacuating. He just goes home because he's local.
Yeah. And Tanto's
and
like,
they
you're gonna have
expect
to
him
sort
to
this
go
shit
with
out,
them.
mate. Yeah. I like it.
I think, to be honest, it's a good film, and that's a lot saying, you know, something for Bay. This is probably his best film since The Rock for me.
Wow. Yeah, no, I'd go there. It's one of my favorite Bay films.
Yeah.
Because I think, I mean, obviously, you know, if you know Bay tropes, you might get it, you might not. But I think you'd be hard pressed to work out if this was a Bay film or not.
I mean, some of the edits and the slow-mo mortar round that comes in and the explosion that kills Roan and Bub, that's
It's just
very
very post
Bay.
John Wick for me. Like every action movie went a bit John Wicky.
It's just like any 2010s actioner, isn't it? That's the style they went with. But I think that takes us into the trope tally.
Oh, you've
ready?
done a trope tally. You always do these
Absolutely.
without telling me. To get my.
I know. Okay.
How
So
dare
first
you
up-
jump on me like this?
First up, we've got flashbacks to his family,
Always,
where
yeah.
he kind of like flashes back. Some of them are. I like the use of technology he's doing, like trying to like send a signal, trying to send off like a video message about his
Yeah,
wife
yeah.
being pregnant, trying to like
In
Zoom chat with
2012,
her
that would have
before
been that
Zoom
wouldn't
was
have
a
been as
thing,
easy as now. Yeah, yeah.
right? I know, like doing AOL like video chats and stuff. The station chief. This is his last job before retirement.
Yeah.
I think it's Tanto that says, "I've had enough of this 2012 Alamo bullshit."
Lovely line. Some great lines. Some
Beautifully
great one-offs.
self-aware line. I thought that was very
yeah.
good. Last Stand classic line, including "Can we hold on?" Gets shouted at one point.
Yeah.
Air support isn't coming is another classic.
Agreed.
There's a character with a new kid and a new chance, and he's killed. It's Roan.
Yeah.
He's like, they have this little heart-to-heart on the roof, and he's like,
well, that
got
was
my
true
second
of
chance
Roan
with my kid. It was, but
I mean, that was
fits
true of the real man.
It fits perfectly within that kind of actioner trope. But that's a nice little scene. It gives the characters a little bit of weight, and it's a good sort of palate cleansing moment within, you know, the action.
There is one scene I absolutely hate though, that I'll get to in a minute.
Okay, well, I've got two more on the trope tally. So we've got slow-mo character death by artillery.
That's it.
Following the artillery shell, the mortar round coming in.
Yeah, I'll elaborate in a minute.
And then we've got the pan over the fallen US flag in the pool in the ambassadors complex.
That's the one thing that really was like, I felt the sledgehammer of patriotism.
It's a well-known
fact
fact
my head
that every Micheal Bay film has to have a slow-mo pan across a US flag.
Okay,
it's in all his contracts. I'm assuming.
Right. I thought it was like a
sure.
director trope or something, you know, like a
definitely
like a
is
trope.
though, isn't it? Like I swear to God, like every trailer for his films always has one.
Yeah, like it's as I said, I felt the sledgehammer hit my head of jingoism. I was like, yes, I know.
Kind of turning that on its head. Normally, it's a jingoistic thing. I mean, let's face it, this isn't as bad as say the Battleship.
Oh God, no. This isn't this isn't military industrial complex the movie. You know, like that was the point.
I think it illustrates quite graphically actually that, you know, America is fallible. Things can go wrong.
I think it in its ways is a little bit anti-establishment at points.
Yeah.
So for me, the two scenes that I really hate is one, that flag sequence, but then I really hate the demise of Toby Jones's character. Now I know in the actual siege he was killed by a mortar round, but it's the way that it's done.
It's kind of lost.
Yeah. So Roan is hit, and then the movie goes slow motion, and you get this scene where Toby Jones is going, "No, Roan," and he's like putting his hand out, and then you see another mortar round come in and explode, and then it cuts back to real time, and it was just too tropey for me, too cliche. Like I don't need that. I'd rather have him maybe going to help, just maybe out of shot, even from someone else's perspective. Like do more with that, because we've been at this point in the movie, no one who we are 100%, like who isn't 100% the main cast has been killed. The ambassador's been killed, but they kind of do it off screen in a way.
They do. They don't show it. Yeah.
No, they don't show it.
Which is
and then-
probably a good choice.
Yeah, and I think it's remarkable, that none of these men were hit until the mortar rounds came in. I think that's incredible anyway. But I just felt like their deaths could have been dealt with a little bit better. But then I think the aftermath of them, when you see Krasinski's anger at the Delta Force guys, dropping the bodies off of the roof to get them into the trucks to take them home, I think that's done really well. There is a lot of weight there in Krasinski's performance. I mean, you see his anger at the situation. He's obviously angry his friends are dead, but he's more angry at why they're dead. And I think that's handled quite well. And I just wish we'd had more Toby Stephens. I wish we'd had more of him because he's a very good action-y role guy. He's good at it.
I mean, obviously the character was killed in the mortar attack, and that is tragic that so many people were killed in the incident. But his character is set up as being very important. He's seen as like mustering a scratch QRF, Quick Reaction Force, and making heaven and earth move to get as many guys as he can and as much as many assets as he can down to Benghazi to try and save the annex.
And you can only scratch up like 6 dudes. It's like really
it's like 2 Delta dudes turn up and he's like, this is it. Okay. So
those Delta dudes look cool as F though, don't they? Really,
there's a bit of drip there.
They're very looking cool, big beards, love it.
And he's established, and you think, he's gonna like have some, it's a Micheal Bay film. He's gonna have some cool action scenes, and he has a little bit where he's on the roof and stuff, but it's very quickly kind of it has that scene with the slow mo. But again, if that's what happened in during the event, then...
and it's very respectful to the men that died at the end, showing the stars on the wall, and at the end you have the classic "this is what happened to them after," and you learn that Geist's arm was reattached because the government re-enlisted him so he could get military aid, and that's it. That bit with his arm is brutal, handled really well, and it still shows how much these guys are committed. So he's clearly having a severe blood loss, trauma, and he's like, no pistol now, when it looks like they're going to be overrun. It's hard as nails, all these guys are. And I just at the end of the day, I think it's a decently shot, well acted, well cast action flick, and I don't think you can go wrong with it, really.
I tend to agree. It the scale's good, the building
putting the
of
politics
tension,
aside,
the tension's well constructed, the flow of the film's good. It's a classic Last Stand format,
and we all know Matt loves that.
I mean, who doesn't love Last Stand film?
It's cool. Yeah, what you're
it
getting.
literally is 2012 Alamo.
And if you haven't seen The Outpost and you've seen this, then you will enjoy The Outpost, and vice versa. If you've seen The Outpost and not 13 Hours, you'll like this one.
Yeah, probably true.
They are very kindred spirits. So that was 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. We rather enjoyed it. There's a lot more going on in the background there, but we're a film podcast. There's some great articles out there online for you to learn a lot more about what actually happened. And do join us again for more war movie reviews. Next week, we have a special with Hattie Hearn of the IWM Duxford, talking all about the real history behind Masters of the Air. So do catch up with us for that one, and we will catch you again soon. Join the socials, leave us a review. We'd love to read them. And I'll catch you again next week. Bye-bye, folks.
Bye, guys.